Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. At the end of 2 Corinthians chapter 13, you've got Paul. He's been sharing so much with these Corinthian Christians. We've got like 2 whole letters. You've got like 16 chapters. In 1 Corinthians, you got 13 more chapters. So here we are now. We're 29 chapters into all the stuff and instructions and everything else that he shared with them. And at the beginning of this final chapter, he says, "This will be my 3rd visit to you. Every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. I already gave you a warning when I was with you the 2nd time, and I now repeat it while absent." Now, without going into the details of what the message was that Paul was giving them, it's that thing he says, every matter will be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. And that was actually a principle that went right back into the Old Testament to Deuteronomy chapter 19. What Paul was saying was this, that we serve a God who speaks. He is not the God who is silent. The Old Testament prophets spoke about the idols that people, the foolishness that somebody would go into the forest and cut down a tree and take a piece of wood and carve it and make an idol out of it and then bow down and worship the very thing that he had created. And it was dumb. It couldn't speak. But we serve a God who speaks. God speaks to us in so many ways. God speaks to us through his word. He speaks to us through the advice of other people. He speaks to us through words of prophecy. He speaks to us through visions and dreams. I think it was John Wesley said, sometimes the way God speaks to me is he puts good ideas into my head to see things are common sense. So God speaks to us in so many ways. But it's an important principle that God confirms his word out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. I've seen people so desperate to see something happening in their life that they decide God has said it. God has said I'm going to have this. God has said I'm going to get a new car. God has said I'm going to get that job. Sometimes it's more wishful thinking than God. And sometimes, thank God for true prophets, but sometimes there are false prophets. Sometimes there are people that speak things that are not true, and they say, "Thus saith the Lord," and God's saying, "Oh no, I didn't." How do we know the false from the true? Well, one way, of course, is to have an intimate relationship with him. Because the greater your relationship with God is, the more you recognize his voice, and the voice of another you will not follow. Jesus said that in John's Gospel. However, another way is that God confirms his word out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. So if we think God is saying something, but we're not sure if it's him or not, we want to make sure it's not just us and it really is God, then we ask him to confirm his word. And God does this in wonderful ways. It may be that you're reading the Bible and a verse just leaps out at you and you say, "Wow, I think God's talking. He's telling me to do this." And then the next day somebody comes and says something very similar to you, or you get a letter in the post or an email that quotes that exact same scripture to you. Can I tell you, there's times whenever I'm praying with people in a line, at people coming forward for prayer at the end of a church service, and there's times when I just will say to people, "Look, I believe the Lord is speaking. I believe the Lord wants to say this into your life." And you know what? The times whenever people's eyes just open wide and they know without a shadow of a doubt God is speaking to them is because I'm not the first person to say that to them. I'm one of the witnesses. I'm the 2nd or the 3rd witness confirming that which God has already spoken to them. So I would encourage you strongly, if you believe God is speaking to you and directing you to do something, it might be to give money to somebody, it might be to start a course of study, it might be to apply for a job, could be anything. But if you believe God is speaking to you, then don't be afraid to say, "Lord, would you please confirm your word? Would you please just send 2 or 3 witnesses so I will know without a shadow of a doubt that it's you?" Because down the line, you can come across testing times And if you're beginning to say, well, did God really call me to do this or not? But when you know because you know because you know because you've had the 2 or 3 witnesses, then you will not be shaken from the course that God has set you on. May you find God's plan for your life, and may you have great joy following it, and may he confirm his word out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. God bless you today. Have a great day, and please join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.